Hello and welcome to Vinyl Safari. In today's episode, I am speaking with Miss Emily. Miss Emily, aka Emily Fennell Taylor, is a Canadian blues and soul singer based in Kingston, Ontario. Emily's career is a long and storied one, and her name is one that most everyone in Southern Ontario who gives a damn about music really should know. I highly encourage you to listen to her recorded works both in studio and live, as she has one of the most pleasant and engaging voices in Canadian blues music today. A prolific performer, studio artist, vocal coach, and session musician, Miss Emily is no stranger to the music business, and is one of those select few who has made a truly successful career in music entirely independently, earning her accolades such as the Maple Blues Awards for both Female Vocalist and New Artist of the Year, as well as the Sapphire Canadian Blues Music Video Award. We discuss what being recognized in such a way means to her as an independent artist, her biggest influences, how she came upon her incredibly unique vocal style, plans for the future, and much more. I hope you enjoy this episode, and if you do, please remember to subscribe to Oakridge Ave on YouTube, follow Vinyl Safari on your preferred podcatcher, and share the podcast wherever you can. Thanks for listening, and without further ado, I bring you Miss Emily. All right. Hey, Emily, thank you for joining the Vinyl Safari podcast.
Great to be here.
Yeah, so I know that as a musician, it must be excruciating to keep answering the same question, but for relevance sake, I need to ask, how have things been going for you during this pandemic as a musician?
So, I'm a very optimistic, positive person, annoyingly so to some of my friends and family. Um, I've actually been okay. I can see the bigger picture here. I have not been sick. My family has not been sick. Nobody I know who has died. And that is really, really what matters. Having said that, I did lose all of my amazing momentum, career momentum that this year started off with in February, winning a couple awards. And then all of a sudden it was like everything came to a grinding halt. Career-wise, it's devastating. It makes me very sad. I have some pretty crappy days when I think about how do I pick up the pieces and continue on in a new world that is going to accommodate music. So I flip-flop. I guess that's the best way to describe what I'm going through and how I'm feeling.
Yeah, I get that for sure. It has its ups and downs. I am glad that you brought up, though, the awards at the beginning of the year. So you, in February, won the Maple Blues Award for Female Vocalist of the Year and New Artist of the Year. Is that correct?
It is. And
that's
then
fantastic. Very well deserved, by the way.
Thank you. We won an award, the Sapphire Video Award for Hold Back the River, which we put a lot of work into, and so it was nice to have that recognized.
Well, congratulations, first of all. I'm curious to know, what did that sort of mean to you as an artist at this point in your career?
Oh, everything. It really meant everything, which sounds so over the top, which I'm an over the top person. So it's very fitting that I say that, but it really did mean everything to me. I haven't been recognized, I would say, in my field, really ever, by my peers in anything that's even remotely relatively similar to that. So It was huge. It was really huge. It just being nominated. Being nominated was like one of the greatest moments of my life, finding out I was nominated. Literally one of the most shocking, greatest moments of my life. And winning, of course, wonderful. Like, what a wonderful bonus. But that was just the icing on the cake. The cake was just being nominated. It was amazing.
Well, like I said, it's very well deserved. I have to admit, having known your name for quite a long time certainly in the Kingston music area, I was less familiar with your work up until about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your 2017 record that you made with Gord Sinclair and Rob Baker from The Hip. So sort of what was the ethos behind that record? How did that get started? And what was it like writing and recording with them?
So we started that album in 2014, if
Oh,
you can
wow.
believe
That's
it.
a long
Yeah.
project.
Yeah, because we really we built it from the ground up. So Gord and I decided we were going to do a project together again. He had produced a third of my Rise album, which was
Okay.
released in 2014, and we just worked really well together. You know, he's a freaking genius. He's so smart. He's an amazing musician. He's an
Hmm.
incredible songwriter. You know, he penned a lot of the really early successful tunes for the hip. And they're a band that shares songwriting credits, which I think
Yeah.
is one of the reasons why they lasted as long as they did as a 5-piece unit.
Mhm.
Um, because it strips down the ego, you know, and it's like the greater good. So everything about Gord to me is like awesome. He's just a really awesome human all around, and
Mhm.
we're quite good friends. On top of the fact that we like to work together. So when we started this project in 2014, we thought, let's write some tunes. Let's see what I've got sitting around. What do you have sitting around? Let's work together. And he's early on, he said, we should bring Robin to this. I think he'd be into it. And I know he's got some stuff. And when we brought Robin and the three of us started working together and doing these writing sessions, and it was just a blast. And then, of course, we all know what happened. I can't remember the exact year now because the last 5 years seems like a blur. But, you know, during the time we were working on this album, Gord Downie got sick. We continued work on this album. They were doing the Fully Completely tour for part of the work on this record. I mean, I was a fly on the wall for a lot of conversations between the two of them during some very interesting times in the band's evolution, I guess is the best way to say it. And there's so much wisdom there, and there's so much to admire both
Mhm.
personally and professionally for both of those men. So I did a lot of listening because I am not a stupid person. I did a lot of listening and watching. The two of them have been best friends since like primary school.
Yeah.
So that's that type of a relationship. I mean, I had everything to benefit from just like being present and listening and trying to absorb as much of the knowledge and the talent and the wisdom that I could. And I think a lot of it has stuck, and I've learned so much from working with them. And that's why we continue to work together when moments come up to this day, really. So
Yeah. Yeah,
why
that's awesome. I
fix
mean,
what isn't broken?
yeah, exactly. Well, and the proof is in the pudding, really. It's really an outstanding record. I've listened to it a few times just over the last few days, as well as the live album, which I did want to get onto as well. So I, for one, as a musician who I adore live albums. They're like the cream of the crop for me. A great live album, it's heads and tails over anything else basically that could be done in the studio, despite there being a certain charm and great studio production and everything. But your live album is it's one of the better produced albums I've heard in a long time. Like the sound is pristine. Obviously, the Isabel Bader Center is just an amazing place to perform and record. But I just wanted to tell you, like, I really, really enjoyed that album. I've listened to it more times than any of the other studio stuff. Not to disparage them in any way, but it's just there's a really what's the word I'm looking for? An intensity and a charm to the live experience that is really hard to tap into in the studio. Um, and yeah, so generally, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, that was recorded over a number of performances, was it not?
Yes, we had 5 or 6 shows, and I think 4 or 5 of those shows, there's tracks. I think there's only one show that didn't make it on the record in some way. So we included music from a number of shows, and Aaron Holmberg, who was the technical director of the Isabel, and also uh, doubles as a super long time friend of mine. He sat at the soundboard for part of some of those shows, and then he was tech director for some of the other ones. And he actually blended all of those tracks together, made it sound like it was one show,
Yeah.
and mixed it. And he did a phenomenal job. I mean, he deserves so much credit because that's like an art form, real
Yeah.
art form. And I listened to a bunch of live records. And actually, once I listened to the Mavis Staples live record, I texted her. I was like, "Never mind. Why are we even bothering?"
Yeah. I mean, the
There's some cool records out there.
consistency was amazing. Like, I was listening to it going, this sounds like it was all one show, start to finish. It's incredibly well done. It really is a testament to Aaron. Oakridge Ave has worked with him a couple times. We hope to more in the future, because everything that I hear of his, actually, oftentimes it'll happen where I don't know that it's him. I'll be like, God damn, this sounds so good. Who are these people working with? And invariably, Aaron is involved at some point in the process. And yeah, it really is a phenomenal album. I wanted to ask you, as a singer myself, a little bit about your vocal technique. First of all, maybe we'll start with your influences. So vocally, what are your biggest influences as a musician?
So I was really fortunate when I was a young kid growing up in super south and rural Prince Edward County.
Mm-hmm.
That we had churches that I could sing at and a few like local events. And with those, I was able to connect with musicians, full-time musicians in the area, actually. And so they were, a lot of my early influences came from the local music community. My parents didn't listen to a lot of radio. The music we listened to in our house was old soul for the most part. My mom listened to old gospel music and country gospel. And my dad listened to a ton of Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, Aretha Franklin, Otis Redding, Sam Cooke, and then throw in there some ZZ Top.
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, that's the recorded music I was listening to. Having said that, when I was 9, I found my mom's Carole King Tapestry album, and like my mind blew. I just was like, first of all, a woman, and there just weren't a lot of women in the music we were listening to. And I looked at the credits, and she's playing piano and she's singing them and she's writing the music. And I was just, in the, early 90s, artists weren't doing that, in grunge they were, but like in pop music, that, Mariah Carey was not writing her songs. Other people were writing her songs, so it was just, and same with Celine Dion and all those kind of popular female singers of that time. So those early influences, I think, were crucial to how I developed as an artist. I'm not really a product of my generation in a lot of ways musically. We never listened to 80s music growing up. I was born in the 80s. No 80s music in my house, except for maybe Wham! Make It Big. I think that record we had.
Yeah. I think it was similar for me, actually, with the exception of maybe some late 90s and early 2000s pop music that I look back on with a weird nostalgia at the moment. But my family was always listening to old classic rock and blues, and my mom was very much into choral music and barbershop and everything like that. So yeah, I can definitely relate there. I wanted to ask again, more specifically about some, like your vocals, especially on the live album. I have to say, as just a listener, the way that you sing and handle your vibrato and just the control you have is just intoxicating, I think is the best word I can put it. Like, it drew me in and I just could not stop paying attention to it. And then again, from a musician standpoint, I'm thinking, how the hell does she do that incredible deep vibrato with the voice? Like, it was really something that caught and held my attention. I just wanted to ask, how did you sort of manifest your particular style, the way you do your vibrato? It's very, very intriguing and unique, I find.
Okay, so this is such a cool question, and I'm so excited to answer it, because that's the benefit of talking to a fellow musician, a fellow singer. It's like, people don't ask these questions. And I love to talk about the singing aspect of it, because you can always continue to learn as a singer. You can always get better. That's my philosophy, and that's why I still sometimes teach. Now I just teach kind of a select number of other professional singers, but I'm forever learning, and I learn through other people learning. I'm trained classically. I'm trained as a classical singer. I did 2 years at Western in the classical music program, studying classical voice. And my breathing and my some of the specifics with my voice and some of the details that I really, really put a lot of effort into, and most people don't necessarily notice. I love that you pick up on some of this. It's really cool for me because people are like, oh, it's good, but they don't necessarily know why it's good. And it's attention to detail. And that comes from a classically trained background. Any classical singer who's formally trained will listen to my voice and be like, she breaks a lot of rules. And I know that. And that's why I do the music I do. That's the music that drives me, but I have to really find the balance there. And also, I was a bar musician for years. I destroyed my voice for years because that was just, unfortunately, you can't hear yourself, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Now getting to sing in beautiful theaters and stuff, sometimes I get to really showcase what I can do and protect myself in that. So my voice is the best it's ever been. I'm 39 years old. My voice has never been better than it is now. And that gives me so much excitement and hope. But I think really, I'm on chatterbox, sorry.
No, this is all good. This is what it's about.
It all comes down to breathing.
Mm-hmm.
It really comes down to breathing. The deep vibrato, the deep vibrato, probably, if I was to break it down, comes from my early influences with soul music and listening to that and mimicking that as a child. I really think probably that I could tell you, it's just in my DNA. I don't know that it is in my DNA. Like, my father's my favorite singer in the whole world. When people ask me, who's your favorite singer? It's my dad. My dad is the most beautiful frigging voice. It's just like, and he's been smoking since he was like 11.
Oh, geez.
Not cigarettes, it's a pipe. He's a very classy guy. And it's not like he smokes a lot, but he has this like voice of an angel, has this vibrato. So maybe some of it's genetic, and some would be probably mimicking him, and some would be mimicking other soul artists from an early age, and really good singers. I mean, you couldn't be a shitty singer in the 50s and 60s, really. 50s for sure.
There's no way to mask anything.
Yeah, exactly. So like Sam Cooke, like if you listen to the detail of his voice, the way he, starts a phrase and comes off of a phrase, and where he chooses to put vibrato in or hold it back, it's just like,
Another artist.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually was recently rewatching for I don't know how many times. Well, I'm 25, so probably at least 25 times because it's every year. But watching White Christmas and just listening to Bing Crosby, and just it was actually it felt similar to me when I was listening to the Bader album. Just the control, that low, deep vibrato. It really harkens back, like you say, to a time when it was all about control. It was all in the details and the breathing, and there was nothing there to mask any mistakes of any kind. So for that, I greatly admire your technique for sure, and I can see those influences coming through.
Thank you. I might be most proud of this live record than I have been of any record, and for that reason, your real abilities are showcased. It's a one take situation, and a lot of the studio albums I've done, we've really done one take or two takes for the vocals, with some exception, of course, but generally speaking, I just believe if you're a good singer, you can frigging pull it off, Yeah. And some singers are really, really good and can do that, and some can't, and which brings us to, some of the complaints I have about music today. But on the flip side of that, more people get to make music, and I guess that's good. Yeah. Because they can do 1,000 takes, but I'm always looking for the singers who can who you can tell, who are amazing live, first of all, without the help of live auto-tune, which of course a lot of audiences don't even know they're listening to.
Yeah, for sure.
Make me sick.
Yeah. The only time I really like the presence of auto-tune on a voice is when I know that it's being used specifically as an effect and not as a corrective tool. Some artists are able to use it in a really inventive way, and that's where, but there are artists who can sing anyway because they're not doing it all the time. So
you're absolutely right. The effect aspect, like I'm behind in the times as far as on the tech side of things. Hence I'm sitting on my bedroom floor, like I'd sit, you know, no mic, no nothing like that. But I think, you know, technology has brought us so many cool gifts that we can take our instruments, in particular our voices, and do all these cool things with them. And it creates different types of art. And I love that. I love that. As long as there's like a talent behind it.
For sure, yeah. And you know, it's no fault of anyone that just within the realms of blues, jazz, soul, rock and roll in my case, that just things like techno sounds and auto-tune just don't really dwell in those genres, which is fine. But you know, I can appreciate when it's used in a cool way. But again, there really is no substitute for great singing, and that's the bottom line, really.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Makes me
Speaking
think
of
of
which,
Staples, actually, the more we're talking about it, I'm like, oh, David Staples. That live record, now that you talked about live records, it's just, I'm going to have to go listen to it after this.
wicked.
It's like one of the greatest things I've ever heard.
That's a good segue. I wanted to ask, I'm going to be putting you on the spot. I did this with, I was speaking to Jonas from the Wilderness the other day, but if you had to pick, and I know this is very tough, so they probably change. You'll probably think of something as soon as the podcast is over. But if you had to pick 3 albums, and you could only listen to those 3 albums for the rest of time, what would those be? At least for right now in this moment.
Oh, for sure. No, I'm. It would actually be pretty consistent for me for most of my life, which is crazy.
Oh, yeah?
I can say that at 39 because it's like I've been an adult for half my life now. Weird. It's so freaking weird. Anyways, Carole King's Tapestry for sure. Radiohead, The Bends.
Oh God, I love that album.
Yeah,
that's my favorite Radiohead album.
Oh, me too. And it really gets left off a lot of lists, but to me, it's like a perfect blend of bizarre and pop, rock, and like alternative. It's amazing to me. And we just actually did a show at the Isabel that was live streamed for 50 people in the audience, and then live streamed to people out at home. And I was just feeling kind of ballsy, and I was like, guys, I just need you to learn Radiohead Just, and we did that song. Wow. And it was so much fun, like a soul version of that song.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I'll have to share it with you when we get.
Oh, I would love that. I'm sad I missed it on the day.
I'm just glad to hear that I know somebody who loves the Benz album.
It's my favorite Radiohead album, hands down. I've been conspiring to try and get the guys to cover the song with me, because it's such a great, like, all out rock and roll song. And yeah, I mean, we could probably do a whole other podcast on that alone.
We could. Oh my gosh, I would love to pick your brain about that album sometime. And my third album would be Fiona Apple, When the Pawn.
Okay.
That would be, and I'm not generally the singer-songwriter girl thing does not do it for me generally, but somebody, a former producer of my Green album, Jeff Vandertot, introduced me to that record years ago, and it's brilliant. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but she has a new album out that doesn't do anything for me. I wish it did, but I also love that she's just like, she's an artist. She's making art, and she doesn't really care what people think about the art that she makes.
Yeah.
She really doesn't. And you got to give a person credit for that. But that When the Pawn album is just mind-blowingly brilliant, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have to delve into that.
Yeah, for sure.
This is another great thing too with these podcasts. You're the third guest I've had so far, but I've just discovered so much great new music and old music as well that has somehow passed me by. So yeah, thank you for sharing those.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
I'm also curious to know if there's anything new that has caught your ear recently that you think maybe other people should be paying attention to music-wise.
Begonia.
Any great new discoveries? Begonia?
Yeah, Begonia. I watched her. She came to the Grad Club, I want to say a year ago, and my friend Maya, who's a French artist, was opening for her, and I've known Maya for 15 years, over 15 years now, actually. And so she was opening for Begonia. I'd heard about Begonia, but I was there to see Maya, and Maya and I were going to go out for a drink after. So I stayed and watched Begonia's set, and she is amazing. she is based out of Winnipeg, which has an amazing scene,
Mhm.
and she's making really cool music. It's very different than music I make, but as a singer, you would appreciate her, I think, a
All
lot.
right.
This is incredible. Um, who else do I love? Oh, I love Julia. If we were talking about from a local standpoint, I love Julia Finnegan. Julia Finnegan was
She's
a student of
she's
mine
great.
for her teen years. And so I was always trying to get her to develop her singing voice in all different types of ways so she could choose what she wanted to do with it. At the end of the day, she's a very unique style of singing.
Mhm.
She's got some like quirkiness to her voice
Yeah.
that she totally embraces and owns. And her songwriting is like number one. She's an incredible songwriter. Um, I've covered her music before a number of times, and I just think she's such a gem of a human being on top of being very
Totally.
talented.
She's one of my favorite local artists for sure. I've actually, you know what, you just reminded me. I'd thought previously that I got to get her on here as well to talk about some of this stuff. So I will have to do that soon.
You know who else you should maybe think of having on is Michelle Kasabowski.
Mm-hmm.
She's great. She just did a big show this weekend at the Isabel, her annual Christmas show,
Oh yeah,
which I think makes her 2 Isabel shows for her within a month.
wow,
So it's
that's
pretty
wicked.
impressive. Maybe within even a couple of weeks. Kingston is like overflowing with female talent right now. It's like crazy because there was nobody. It was like Georgette Fry,
Yeah,
and then me. There was like this huge like void. I mean, Chris and Dee came along. Chris and Dee are amazing. Chantel Thompson. There's some great female singers, but like the full timer circuit was like super barren. It was just
mm-hmm.
there was no women, and now it feels like the club has grown and it's amazing and awesome.
Yeah,
Oh my
that
gosh,
is
I
a
could
good
give you a
point.
list. I just want to give you a list now.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. Like, I listen to a lot of rock and roll and blues and all kinds of things. I mean, I'm kind of genreless with regards to what I like, which is, I think, a good place to be. But just on account of how much rock I listen to, it really does tend to skew towards male artists just by dint of the genre. But so many of the new artists, especially from Kingston and various other parts throughout Ontario and Quebec, many of the up and coming artists that have caught my ear and my attention lately have been young female vocalists or female fronted bands. Even the Beaches, like, goddamn, they freaking slay. I was fortunate enough to see them at McKinnon. What was it, 2018 or 2019? It was 2019.
I think it was 2018. Oh, you know what? I could be wrong. No, I feel like, did they play after? I don't know. We're all drunk at McKinnon's. This is a problem. Yeah. I don't remember.
Yeah, I have some embarrassing anecdotes of trying to go up and talk to them after the show, which was after about 13 hours of straight beer drinking. But I think I learned my lesson after the first one. I went to speak to the drummer and was like a little bit too fumbly over my words and could tell she was just like, yeah, I just got off stage. I want to drink. Go get out of my hair. And then I learned from that. Second time I went to speak to Jordan, the lead singer and bassist, and I was like, all right, I don't want to embarrass myself. I'm super drunk. You guys rock. I loved the set, and I can't wait to see you guys in the future. She just kind of laughed and said thanks, and I was like, all right, that's the way to do it at these beer festivals. Be quick, be concise, have the disclaimer right off the bat.
Oh, so
anyway,
funny.
that's my Beaches anecdote.
Well, they're great. They're super great.
Yeah. So I was curious to know as well. Obviously, nothing really went to plan this year for any artists I know, but that hasn't stopped a lot of artists from planning ahead to the degree that we can for some really, really cool stuff. I'm curious to know what's sort of on the horizon for you in this coming year.
Well, I was supposed to make a studio record last March, which was canceled. Hard cancel, which is why I pulled a live album out of my butt.
A fantastic one.
Hey,
I wish I could pull an album right out of my butt.
Well, you just got to know a guy like Aaron Holmberg. But yes, quite literally, we put that together. That thing came together in weeks, not months, weeks.
Wow.
It's crazy. So Nick, this upcoming year, I'm going to make a studio record. I still don't know how that's going to happen yet. I've been talking to Sinclair about it, trying to figure out how we're going to do that. I've been doing some writing with a really great guy and great talent named Colin Linden, who just won a Grammy last year for the Keb Mo album.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he produced the Keb Mo album, and he's an incredible songwriter and guitarist and singer, and he's a member of Blackie and the Rodeo Kings. Anyways, we've been doing some writing, so I'm curious to see where that goes. The last 2 months I've been just focused on the release of this new record, so I'm excited to kind of jump back into that. On top of that, I would love to do some more live shows. I mean, we were supposed to play 2 shows this month at the Cove in Westport. They were pretty much sold out. We had to cancel those just because safety first. And the numbers were rising in the province, and we just need to be smart. That's the most important thing. We were fortunate enough to play 2 really big, awesome shows outside at the Cove in August, when nobody was doing anything, it seemed like, and there was the Cove like producing these small miracles that just meant so much to myself and my bandmates and the audience and my crew and everything. So I'd love to do more shows. I'd love to tour. Normally this time of year I'm overseas. I usually do a UK tour this time of year, and this time last year I was doing a tour with Light of Day, which is an organization I work with, and I was with some incredible talented people, and we were playing shows in Italy and Germany and Sweden and then of course the UK on top of that, and I had just and I flew there literally early the next morning after playing the Women's Blues Review at Roy Thompson Hall in Toronto. So what a difference a year makes.
Yeah.
So I'd like to do all that next year too. I was supposed to be in Germany for a standalone German tour in May, so I'd like to reschedule that. Got some big plans.
Yeah.
I really would love to be recognized by the Junos, so I'm really focused on that. I'd love to see this album that I just released recognized, but in fairness, it is a live album, and those are a little bit tricky.
Right.
With those types of organizations. So fingers are crossed that it's recognized, but if it's not, then this next studio album I will be focused and putting in my best effort for that as well.
Awesome.
Onwards and upwards, man. Always.
Yeah, I am so excited to hear that.
Thanks. Me too. I still have what was going to be on it last year, it's completely changed now. So I've just completely changed as to what I really want on it now and the sound I want. So I'm curious what it's going to sound like at this point, but looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, I know you have some things you have to get to around noon. I just wanted to fire off some rapid fire questions, if you're okay with that, towards the end.
Oh my gosh, I love this.
Alrighty. Beatles or Stones?
Beatles.
All right. Road or studio?
Studio.
Yeah.
Family.
Yeah, that makes sense.
On the road. It's tough to be on the road. Yeah. I love the road, but
I'm conflicted on that one as well. I just don't think I've spent enough time in the studio yet to make a reasonable conclusion there, because we tour so much more than we record. But who knows? Hopefully that'll change soon.
From a singer to singer, I just want to mention this to you. If you ever get a chance to do studio work, like session work, which is what I've done a lot of in the past 10 years with a few different songwriters. So literally dozens and dozens of hours where I've been in the studio, not on my dime, getting paid to sing other people's music and stuff. I learned so much. And that's one of the reasons why I love the studio too, is because I've been able to hone that skill.
Yeah.
And I really pride myself on it. And of course, it keeps me close to home. But
yeah, totally. That's great. Album or singles?
Album.
Yeah. That one I don't even know why I have on the list, because everyone says album. But I'm still thinking I'll find somebody who prefers just standalone songs, which I could see a good argument for, depending on the kind of music one listens to.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right. Are you a lyrics first or music first songwriter?
It depends. I have no consistent way of writing. It's always, or listening even, actually. No consistent way of listening, no consistent way of writing. Different things connect with me at different times.
All right.
Depending on different drugs and different alcohol and different sleep patterns and different...
That's a good point, actually.
Different times of day. I don't know.
Yeah. It's, again, speaking with Jonas, he's very much a lyrics first type of guy, which is cool. It's so the opposite for me. This question, I know it's like most people, it's not consistent. They don't really have a stringent way that they attack songwriting. But for me, it's interesting because I don't try to write music first, but it always ends up happening that way by accident. Like I'm always like, okay, I have this great thing. Now I have to go and ruin it by writing lyrics. and that's a constant struggle. But I'm fascinated by people who do it the other way around, or even something completely different. Like there are so many different ways that can be approached. So yeah.
So when I've seen you live, it's been melodies that have connected for me. So it's interesting to hear you say that. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you.
I couldn't tell you I mean, often if it's in a loud venue or whatever, it's hard to make.
If it's anywhere like the Toucan, I just sort of write off trying to hear words, but
Yeah, right. You just described like 99% of my career to this point. But it's like, but for sure, your melodies are very strong, and that's what connected with me immediately the first time I saw you guys. Actually.
Oh, thank you. That's great to hear. I take melodies very seriously, and they're important to me. So that's great to hear.
Well, you're doing a good job.
Thank you. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but Emily, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and hopefully we'll have to do this again sometime. Maybe we could do a deep dive on the bends at some point too.
I'd love that.
Yeah, we're this podcast is very much in its infancy so far. I'm just starting out by talking to fascinating and cool people in the industry, and I'm thinking, given the name Vinyl Safari, I think there will be enough people who will be like, well, I wanted to hear about records and vinyl and, audiophile stuff like that. And I'm going to be, hopefully we'll get into stuff like that as well, and maybe do some deep dives with people who are passionate about specific records and stuff. So cool. We'll keep that on the radar.
Thanks for the great questions today. Like, fantastic. I loved it. Really had a good time.
Thank you very much. Awesome. Well, you have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good, Sean. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on Vinyl Safari. If you enjoyed the podcast, please follow Vinyl Safari on whichever podcast platform you're using. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to Oakridge Ave to catch the latest episodes, new music, and more. We greatly appreciate your support. You can also follow Miss Emily online at themissemily.com, at themissemily on Twitter and Instagram, and at themissemily music on Facebook. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you on the next Vinyl Safari.